almost there. No way. What is this? You're tuned in to the Eyes Open podcast, where secrets aren't safe and we see it all.
So we have some new things to add to the red files for today's episode. So we're going to go ahead and add them to the red files. Now, this is something, it's been coming up a lot lately, and it's for the reasons, for example, they were talking about these types of particles. It was going around Washington, D.C. recently, and it was also New Mexico, a few other states, where the particles, the particulates in the air, they didn't know how to explain it. They were putting out this air quality alerts and stuff like that. So it's been in the talk more than a lot usual. Everybody's been talking about the chemtrails, talking about what they're spraying us with. Now, I've talked, the other episodes that I've talked about chemtrails on, it's been intertwined with what we the narrative was what we were actually talking about on that particular episode. But I've never actually completely broken down the topic of chemtrails for you guys, at least not yet. So in order to really take a look at the whole chemtrail discussion, you have to take it back a little bit. All right, so they went from telling you were completely insane when people first were noticing chemtrails and talking about it on the internet. And this was maybe, I remember, I mean, it's been a long time. I would say people were easily talking about it around the inception of Facebook, maybe even as far back as the MySpace days. People were noticing it back then. If they weren't posting about it on MySpace, they were posting about it on Facebook when Facebook first started. So we'll say 2007, 8, somewhere around there, maybe even a little sooner. But they were definitely noticing the chemtrails, because for all of us that, are even, for anybody that's older than those who are old enough to live in the 90s, remember what it was like to be in the 90s, remember before we had cell phones and really pagers were all that people, really had. Anybody that remembers the pre-phone, pre-internet era, we were paid attention to everything way more. So I remember, for example, I used to love just laying on the grass out in the yard as a kid and just staring up at the sky. So people are not going to tell me that it's normal, because it's not. I remember looking at the skies as a kid, and we didn't have those, okay? We didn't have the crisscross, crazy-looking skies like that like we do now. So anybody that would say that, I'm like, you're crazy, okay? I remember what I remember, all right? So you couldn't tell me that that was normal to see that. And they tried to pitch you on that for so long. They tried to tell you were crazy for thinking that. That was the wildest part. It's like, why are you trying to tell me what I remember? Okay? The one thing I know is, and the people in my family know me for this, they know that my memory is very sharp. Like, I remember stuff. We'll be the type, if we're sitting around, like, and we got together as a family, and people are like, oh yeah, what's that one thing, this and that one time or whatever, and I'll be able to explain the whole thing, and like, oh, I totally even forgot about that. A certain scenario, how it unfolded. So I remember details of stuff very easily. So I think I remember what the skies looked like back then, especially when I used to lay on trampolines and lay on the ground and stargaze. And, that's all we used to do back then, because we didn't have cell phones and, all these type of devices to keep us distracted with. We had to go and look up at the sky and look at planes and stuff like that. Like, kids don't do that stuff no more. Which is sad. That's a whole, another discussion of how technology has progressed. But like I said, they can't tell you that it's normal. Even what I noticed is Prince came out talking about chemtrails, and he died not too long after this. So Prince was one of the ones, I believe, that was exposing a lot of secrets in Hollywood through his platform, being such a big artist, that they didn't like it too much. But because I'll go ahead and I'll roll the video. I'll show you. Here's the video of Prince talking about how he noticed when chemtrails started to show up, and what exactly they were doing to people in his neighborhood after he would notice that this stuff was happening. So I'm going to go ahead and roll the clip.
Phenomena of chemtrails. And, you know, when I was a kid, I used to see these trails in the sky all the time. And say, oh, that's cool. A jet just went over. And then you started to see a whole bunch of them. And the next thing you know, everybody in your neighborhood was fighting and arguing, and you didn't know why. Okay? And you really didn't know why. I mean, everybody was fighting. So he started riffing about the chemtrails. And he started to say things that hit home so hard. And I would recommend that everybody try to get what he said online or wherever and try to get a copy of it and just listen to it. Because I was so moved that I had to write the song. The other thing is the first line of the song says I was born on the same plantation in the United States of the red, white, and blue.
So as you can see, somebody like Prince was talking about how these chemtrails, you know, he would notice these crosses in the skies and these chemtrails everywhere. And he would notice that after they came through the neighborhood or they seen him and they dissipated, he noticed that people were acting very like angry, different. There was types of things going on where the world was getting weird. So even back then when that was happening, who knows if they were spraying stuff, you know, on the populace and making them act a little nutty and act a little angry. I mean, it's very possible, because if you look at things like, what was it, Operation Sea Spray? I believe that's what it was. I'll pull it up on the screen. Operation Sea Spray, they pretty much, what they did was they sprayed without their permission, mind you, okay? The military just decides to do this, the government. They decide to spray the whole population of San Francisco. All right, so provable military operation back in like the 50s or something. You'll see on the screen the year that they did this. I believe it was maybe 52 or something. So in the 50s, they admittedly sprayed the population of San Francisco with I believe it was a nerve agent or something. It was like some type of you'd have to look more into it, but period, point blank, they admitted that they were experimenting on the population by spraying them with stuff. So it's an admitted operation by the military. So again, they told us we're all crazy when we're seeing these stuff going around, the cloud seeding in a sense that we're seeing. They're telling us that we're crazy, that, oh, there's nothing to see here, folks. Okay, that's normal. That's contrails. And I'm like, no, that's not contrails, okay? We all can see the difference of a plane flying over with contrails versus chemtrails, okay? The distinction is very noticeable, all right? So, like I said, again, gaslighting everybody, telling them that, you know, they're crazy to believe that we're being sprayed with something. But I also find it very interesting. I'd seen this picture that I'm going to pull up for you guys, that once they finally admitted what they were spraying us with, okay? So then they finally caved in, and this was like, I think, 2018-ish, and they said, okay, everybody, you're right. We're spraying everybody with, you know, a certain components, but it's for your own protection. Because what we're doing is we're spraying aluminum and barium, okay, up into the ionosphere up there, because it's blocking out radiation and solar flares, or they're saying all types of crap. It was blocking out radiation from the sun. And that was a good thing to block out, you know, to essentially play God like that. Like who's to think that? Like, oh yeah, we're going to go spray some stuff and it's for your own good. So because it's not like God didn't design everything to be the way it is. Like they think that that's actually for our good. Like they do anything for our good. Yeah, they're really looking out for our health and our good. But they finally admitted it. So they're like, okay, you're not crazy. We admit it. We're spraying stuff up there. So they finally came out. So chemtrails, again, like all the other conspiracy theories that we talk about half the time, that we have enough evidence to prove, are once again proven that they're doing exactly what we said they're doing. We're not people that research, and that in general, they're making people that do the research out to be crazy. Like when is doing research and simply asking questions been deemed as crazy? But that's what it is. That's how they've conditioned people to react. I mean, the whole even term, as most people know, conspiracy theorist, was created by the Alphabet Agency that starts with a C and ends with an A, which obviously, like I said, I'm not gonna, I don't mention that to get flagged here on any platform. I'm not mentioning any 3-letter agencies, but you're better off. It's a little side note for creators out there. Watch certain things. Oh, and trust me, there's certain words I can't use, certain things I can't say, because all they'll do is just pull the videos down. I remember during the whole CVID pandemic, I had some really good episodes. One was on depopulation. It was on multiple things. They just ripped the whole videos down. I think Rumble was the only place I could upload it. And I'm like, dude, nobody's going to see it on Rumble. And so it was like pointless. I had like 1 follower on Rumble. Like even my Rumble now is like maybe 19 or 20 people, like, because I just started it recently, like maybe a month ago. But yeah, it's like if you're on these platforms talking, Rumble, I know, allows people to run wild over there. So I was like, it won't get pulled from Rumble. But then I'm like, but then again, how is it going to get out to the people? So it was kind of redundant. But that's the point of what I'm saying is, like, the real information that we need to get out will be suppressed. Like, that's absolutely for sure. Another pandemic happens, you can absolutely make sure that they're going to censor people like me again. They're going to censor anybody that's talking about it, anybody that's asking questions, because, again, asking questions apparently is dangerous. But they tell you it's dangerous to the population, but really it's dangerous to agendas. That's all it is. You're a danger to their agenda. But as far as like chemtrails go, like we're saying, people need to understand. So they've admitted that they're spraying barium and aluminum up there to reflect the sun. Now, I find it interesting and not a coincidence that if you look at on the elemental chart, what do those spell when you put them together? A name that I don't like to say. So I'm just going to put it on screen and you can see. I don't find that to be a coincidence. So it shows who's behind it. It shows the demonic, evil people that are behind all of this. Now, my opinion, if people want my opinion about what I think they're like, I don't even really believe that's what they're spraying. Maybe that is what they're spraying in a sense, because see, they're spraying that. Do they really think that? How do they sell that to people? How are people not like more outraged by this? What do you think aluminum, okay, is going to do to your health and also to the soil in planting things? Like, what do you think that the repercussions of that is going to be? People can't be that ignorant. Like, you just can't be that ignorant. It's not going to be good. But I even believe there's way more things being put inside of those of what they're spraying than what we even know. Like, I believe that there's see, I gotta be careful here. I don't want to say certain words. Like, when you get sick, you catch a V word. Okay? So I believe they're spraying V words up there. I believe that there's all types of stuff they're spraying in that. Stuff that's making us sick. So that's why, because, for example, even if people did eat better, okay, because that's a different discussion for a different day, but people are sick because they're feeding you your own poison. People are eating too much as it is. They're telling you to eat 3 meals a day, which nobody needs to be eating 3 meals a day. So it's like we as humans consume too much, but we're also consuming poison. Like, I remember seeing somebody had said, if you're in the health food aisle, then what is the rest of the store? It's like, when you really think about that. So it's like, what, the rest of it's all poison? But yeah, essentially, so they're poisoning you in what they're spraying on you, okay? And it's going to go into the soil. It's going to get into your crops. It's going to get into your food. So even if people do eat better and cleaner and like, oh, I eat cleaner and this, that, it's everywhere. It's in your food. It's being sprayed on you. So what really are you going to be able to do at that point? And another argument I've seen people try to come up with is they'll say, it doesn't make sense though. They live here too. Why would they be spraying stuff that would, harm them? And that's a valid question. But here's the thing is, you'll notice in Europe, everything's different. The food's better in Europe. I know people go to Italy and say, oh man, it's so great. Because people over there are, you see a lot of thin Italian people, okay? And they have one of the oldest populations on planet Earth, next to Japanese people. So you go to Italy, all right, and these people smoke cigarettes. They go home and take naps around noon, which I find that wild. Like in Italy, they just shut down, for lunchtime. Everybody goes home and takes a nap, and they come back to work. They're very laid back in Italy and in certain parts of Europe. So if you go over there, you won't see the spraying like that. The food is actually good. Like you can eat, like I try to not eat bread and pasta as much as being Italian. That's hard. But I try to cut back on the pastas and stuff because for that reason, you get bloated, you feel bloated, you get heavier, you look heavier. I try to stay away from that type of stuff, but you go over to Italy, you can eat bread all the time. You can eat pasta all the time, and you're not going to get fat. Mel Gibson did a video not too long ago where he explained that. He said, I'm over in Italy where you can actually eat bread and pasta all the time, and it's not going to bloat you up like crazy because it's not filled with seed oils and all this freaking garbage that they're putting in our food. But like I said, that's one of the answers to your questions. Why do you think you see all these movie stars and everybody's moving to Europe? Okay, everybody's taking off because look at it. Johnny Depp's lived over in Europe for forever. Because the reason being is that's where the elite are at. The elite are over in Europe. That's why the food's better over there and everything. That's why they're banning. Italy's banned fake meat and all that crap. So it's like, that's why the foods are banned over there. That's why the food's cleaner over there. That's why the air is cleaner over there because that's where they live. Now, a lot of people want to believe like, oh, they're beyond the ice wall, which is that. Now, that's for a whole nother topic. But I seen a video about that today that somebody was saying, oh, yeah, the extraterrestrials, like that's why they're telling you because you can't get out of the firmament. Extraterrestrial is like extra terrain. So the extra terrain is beyond the ice wall. Beyond Antarctica, there's another land where they don't spray, they don't do none of that. So that's another interesting episode for another time. But yeah, that's a valid question, though. That's why I want to bring that up, because that's a lot of people say that. And like I said, I'm not going to negate that. It's a valid question. Like, why would they spray if they have to live here too? But like I said, apparently, I know for a fact that that's where a lot of the elites live. They live in Europe. Like, for example, there's a town in Switzerland where it's all billionaires. There's all billionaires in this town. Logan Paul was talking about it. Logan Paul went there with a friend, and him and his friends did a podcast, and they were talking about it. I seen a clip of it, and he said it was insane. He said he went to a party, and like literally so you wouldn't survive in this town for long unless you're extremely wealthy, because he said the parties they're having, they're eating caviar like it's chips and salsa. It's like $50 for a McDonald's meal over there. If you go to a McDonald's in this town, it's like $50-something American dollars to get just a meal. So he said the restaurants, everything was just too expensive to survive there unless you're like really extremely wealthy. So think about that. There's towns out there. Oh, in Switzerland, it's not only beautiful over in Switzerland, the air is clean. You can't even, like, they outlawed air conditioners over there. You can't even use air conditioning. Not that you'd really need it, because I heard it's like beautiful. It's like in the 70s year round over there. But I mean, depending, obviously, you know, if you go up into the Swiss Alps and stuff, it's going to be colder up there, obviously. But if you live like mainland Switzerland, and it's very interesting. I know a lot of the elite live in Switzerland because it says it in a lot of things. Okay, Swiss banking. Okay, you have the Geneva Convention that's over there. Swiss banking, CERN's there. The World Economic Forum. Everything's just conveniently stationed in Switzerland, and they haven't been into war in what, like 300 years or something. So everything, World War II, Nazis, everything just seems to go right around Switzerland. So Switzerland is the banking hub of the world, but it's also absolutely, I believe, 100% where a lot of the elite live. So like I said, go over there. The air is nice and clean. You'll see the difference. So that's where a lot of these people live, and they don't care about anybody else. They don't care what you live in. They probably don't even care what a lot of these actors live in. I mean, a lot of them are getting turbo cancer out of nowhere after the old Pokey came out, and they were all saying, "Oh, get your Pokies, guys." Well, there's been quite a few celebrities that were advocates for that, and now they passed. Like James Van Der Beek, that guy from Grey's Anatomy, died from ALS. They all seem to get these, and there's a long list of them too. Like, it ain't just those few people. There's a bunch of them that were advocating for those jabbies, and now they're all like that. That's like was never a thing. That's like a thing now. I don't care if it's attributed to what they're spraying on us or it's attributed to those pokies, but either way, what's with turbo cancer? We didn't have that back in the day. We didn't have that post 2020 or pre 2020. You guys don't find that odd that now people are getting turbo cancer? They're just like getting diagnosed with cancer and like dying right away. Like, people don't find that strange at all. That's and there we go again. That's a whole topic for a whole nother episode. But I don't, you know, I see the correlation here. I don't find it strange. I actually, when I hear things like that and I see this, I'm like, you know, it makes sense. But honestly, they're going to continue to do this, from spraying to the food to everything, because essentially, like I said, it's not just a chemtrail discussion. It's a food discussion. It's a public health discussion. It's a huge discussion to have. Is they're provably spraying you with stuff. Okay? They've admitted it, and we don't even know what's in it. All right? No, we know that we're testing soil and finding all types of microplastics and crazy weird stuff and V words and bacterias and all kinds of stuff that was not there before. But now all of a sudden, you know, like back in the day, that's what's crazy is back in the day, you can go swimming in a pond and you didn't have to worry about nothing. Okay? Now, so you go swimming in a pond, people getting like brain eating amoebas and stuff like that, or, you know, kids were eating damn dirt back in the day, and nowadays a kid eats dirt, man. You're like, they're getting, you know, ringworm or roundworm or some type of worm or something's going, you know, parasite's going to get them. So it's like, that's just proof and how tainted and poisonous it's become just to live on planet Earth nowadays. They've poisoned this earth to no end, and now they just continue to do it. Because I remember, I distinctly remember pre-CVID days, they were spraying a lot right before that had happened. And I find it not to be no coincidence. There was those big, huge protests in 2019 over in China, and they wanted to shut them down. And people over here, people were in an uproar. You guys remember the Save the Children movement from the summer of 19? Like, people were in an uproar. People were getting ready to protest. Just like now, all of a sudden, people are up in arms and about the whole Epstein stuff, and looks like we may possibly go to war. So they conveniently do all that. But I mean, maybe that's why people are different. You know, maybe that's one of the reasons. Maybe it's what they're spraying in the air. And I did the whole thing. I talked about the whole smart dust thing. Like, I don't think necessarily people with the pokies have to worry about being the only ones being targeted by the 5G, or it's going to connect with 5G, or any type of frequencies are going to connect with those metals and stuff in your body. But what if they're spraying smart dust into the air? What if we're breathing that in? Okay, that stuff, you get smart dust, like I said, it's particulate, like you can't even see it. So if you breathed it in and had it in your bloodstream, in your body, the way this stuff acts is insane. This nanotechnology, like it can read your heart rate and this and that, whatever, and have all data points on you and just send it out into the ether, into the cloud, into their, over to their people, so they can get a mass reading on people and stuff. And I absolutely believe it's very possible that that's what's going on. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it at all. Honestly, nowadays, the truth is stranger than fiction. Reality is crazier than science fiction at this point. So it's honestly, more than ever, as I always say, it's time for people to really open their eyes to what's going on. I mean, it's that time, people. We got to come to grips with the world we're living in, period.